So I didn't expect to be back so soon to join you all. If you did not catch the title of the video today, I am back because Houston has suffered a loss. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody who is here. If you would like to join the panel, you can hit the link in the description. There is the link to join the panel to all my Houstonians and the family and friends, and most importantly, the people who are represented by Sheila Jackson Lee. You have our heartfelt condolences here at the Community and Culture, and definitely from me as someone who is still experiencing the grieving process from the loss of my grandmother. So welcome to tonight's show, honoring the life and legacy of one Sheila Jackson Lee, representative of Houston, Texas. She has been battling a serious medical illness. So if you were unaware, Sheila Jackson Lee was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a few months ago. And we'll discuss a little bit about pancreatic cancer, because in addition to celebrating her legacy, we also want to learn a little bit, as we always do here at the Community. We are about growth and not gossip. And so we want to learn a little bit about pancreatic cancer while we talk a little bit about Sheila Jackson Lee legacy. As always, welcome to the Community and Culture. Here we do growth and not gossip, because our goal is to have safer, smarter, and stronger communities. As you can see, my voice is a little bit worn because the number one is late in Central Standard Time. I did not expect to have this news, and I am prepping for a fundraiser, so I have been busy and out and about. So I was really getting ready to wind down when I caught the breaking news alert. And as a fellow Houstonian, I wanted to come and give our Texans space to share their thoughts and ideas. So again, thank you to everyone who is joining us, or if you are catching this as a part of the replay gang. Today is July 19th, 2024. Thank you for joining me, and we are going to discuss our dear fellow Houstonian, Mrs. Sheila Jackson Lee. There's a picture of the background of the Bayou City, which we absolutely love. She really was a person who was very generous with her time. By no means perfect. She had her fair share of gaffes and issues, but we can definitely say that Sheila Jackson Lee didn't back down from a fight. And so even though cancer has unfortunately come along and created this situation, we are definitely wanting to remember all the ways in which she fought. So first of all, we'd like to say thank you for 18 years, 18 terms, I think. No, this is her 14th term. That's right. 14th term in Congress. It's a little bit late, y'all. And this is breaking news for her life of public service. It is not easy to be a public servant. It is not easy to have to miss things with your family, to have to constantly travel, to organize people in your offices to effectively meet the needs of your constituencies, whether it be problems with their Social Security, problems with their passport, problems with them accessing federal benefits. That is actually what your U.S. Congressperson, U.S. Representative's office does in your local district. And so we want to take time out to really send our heartfelt condolences both out to her family and friends, and also to the staffers and to the interns and to the many people who she has given their political start with her work through the Congressional Black Caucus. And we're going to go through a little bit of her work with the Congressional Black Caucus. Let's see a little bit of Sheila Jackson Lee on the campaign trail when she was running for mayor recently. Shout out to all those Houstonians in the room, and shout out to my AFT brothers and sisters who are working hard every day on the front lines to educate our children. Now, one of the things that Sheila Jackson Lee was very vocal about was violence against women and having healthy families and for women to be able to access the health care that they need. So we're going to take a minute to look at a brief clip from her time in Congress, which there are so many. There are so many, but let's take a look at this one from her a recent floor appearance in the U.S. Congress.
On this floor today because of the Dobbs case of a runaway Supreme Court dominated by members who answered that they understood precedent in Roe v. Wade and ignored it. I want to thank Congressman Manning and all of the co-sponsors to recognize that we have to methodically protect women. Do you know what's happening to doctors? Every news station will have doctors on frightened about what they should do about women's health care. This is an important legislation, the right to contraception, because it does deal with menstrual regulation, endometriosis, or hormonal imbalance. Teenagers are given this because of menstrual problems, but those who don't understand this, they're standing members who answered that they understood precedent in Roe v. Wade and ignored it. I want to thank Congressman Manning and all of the co-sponsors to recognize that we have to methodically protect women. Do you know what's happening to doctors? Every news station will have doctors on frightened about what they should do about women's health care. This is an important legislation, the right to contraception, because it does deal with menstrual regulation, endometriosis, or hormonal imbalance. Teenagers are given this because of menstrual problems, but those who don't understand this, they're standing on the floor talking about this is a runaway bill. If it's coronavirus, the monkeypox, or any other health matter, it is Democrats who are saving America. This legislation is definitely needed because the Supreme Court has trampled on the Constitution, trampled on the Ninth Amendment, trampled on the equal protection under the law.
And I just want to say to our recently gained ancestor, thank you, and thank you. She's been an amazing public servant. Like I said, not without controversy, but definitely has done her best to fight the good fight. And so tonight, as we learned that Sheila Jackson Lee has passed away at the age of 74, we are sending our love and light and thoughts to her family. We are sending them our thoughts and prayers. If you are just now joining us, or if you are catching the replay, today is July the 19th, 2024, and it is currently being reported that Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman from Houston, Texas, has lost her battle with pancreatic cancer. So she did recently win one of her primary races. So let's look at how that actually went down.
congressional district. She surpassed former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards. Our Rochelle Turner live from TSU this afternoon, where she spoke with a political science professor about voter turnout and strategies, Rochelle, in that congressional race.
And Dr. Michael Adams says that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is no stranger to Houston. He says that she has a record here in the 18th Congressional District, which includes Texas Southern University.
First and foremost, I will never let anybody mention the words Texas Southern University, Prairie A&M University, which is technically not in her district, but it's up the street, my alma mater, or any HBCU without giving them their due and proper respect. So shout out to my fellow Tigers down at TSU who are in her district, and amazingly enough, the Cougars are across the street at the University of Houston, if you know anything about Third Ward. Let's keep going.
He says she has worked hard to build relationships with other people in the community over her past 14 terms. And although Amanda Edwards did not win, he says that she did not separate herself from the incumbent. All eyes were on Texas's 18th congressional district race between incumbent Sheila Jackson Lee and Amanda Edwards.
I think the voters, those who did turned out, they spoke resoundingly in favor of Sheila Jackson Lee. She got 60% of the vote on yesterday. And I think we saw there in that race the incumbency advantage.
That's Texas Southern University political science professor, Dr.
Yeah, if you win your race 60-40, that ain't even close. You pretty much handily defeated that person. But Dr. Adams, tell us more.
Michael Adams. He reviewed early voting numbers for the race where Jackson Lee had over 11,000 votes compared to Edwards, who had over 7,000 votes.
So those are your early voting numbers here. Ballot by mail by election day. So we had 65 come in by mail, 449 come in on during early voting, and 13 on election day. We had 2,400 roughly come in by mail, 11,000 early voting, 153 on election day. Early voting is actually really huge in Texas for a number of reasons. Most of all having to do with voter suppression and gerrymandering and the South being the old New South. But we'll discuss why Texans vote early primarily another day. Let's keep going.
He says most of the people who voted early were baby boomers.
They were 60 years of age or older, and many of them were women. And that has traditionally been the base of support for Sheila Jackson Lee.
On the other hand, Dr. Adams says Edwards didn't have a clear message. The former city council member dropped out of the race for Houston mayor to focus on being a congresswoman.
You have to be able to separate yourself from a long-term incumbent. There was no separation in the issues, all right? And if you look at it in terms of there were no marquee, even policy ordinance that you can associate with Amanda Edwards. But Sheila Jackson Lee is a known quantity. She's been out there for a long time.
Edwards hasn't conceded and posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, expressing her gratitude to her family, friends, volunteers, supporters, donors, and her team. Could Amanda Edwards write her name, run as like an independent?
Yeah, you can always have write-in candidates, but hey, that's a big, far stretch there, and it's highly unlikely. If you didn't have enough time doing this campaign to separate yourself, what would happen between now, you know, unless there's an October surprise? And I think Sheila Jackson Lee being a very wholesome person, there's nothing out there where the voters would come back and say they want Amanda Edwards at this point.
So unfortunately, it looks like there have been hello to my favorite person in the universe. You know, this really kind of touched me. If you are not a part of the Cheap Entertainment Gang, if you are not supporting our fellow content creators here who are giving you some of the most amazing stories, and I just want to shout out to this amazing creator that came to stop by and support me, because I know he is a very, very busy creator. The story you covered today had me in tears. It just had me in tears. We are covering things that are happening in the South. We are part of the independent media. We are letting people know that when our people are hurt, when women and children are hurt, when people are harmed knowingly, when they are ignored, when people don't care about the people that they're supposed to care about, we're going to call them out. So if you have not gotten a chance to go over there and support Donat and his new channel and the content that he is creating, especially when he brings awareness to people who are being harmed in our community, like the story that happened today, that is something that is really important. So thank you to all my CCs who come through and support. This means so much to me. He is a phenomenal creator, and I also value his counsel and his friendship. He's just a great guy. So thank you for coming through. So let's talk about the CDC. One of the biggest things that happened after the Civil Rights Act was there were, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll go through the timeline here, 13 people finally elected to Congress in the 70s. So even after the civil rights legislation, we still had to go through and fight the gerrymandering and the voter suppression and the residual Jim Crow. So African Americans have served in the U.S. Congress since Joseph Rainey of South Carolina was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1870. This comes from the Washington Informer. He was joined by other Black men from southern states. However, there is no historical evidence indicating these representatives organized, even though they had common interests. When Black people started being elected and re-elected to Congress in the 1960s. So every time you hear somebody say something foolish and ignorant, uneducated, and obscene about Jim Crow, I want you to come back to this live and I want you to pull up this information and you show them that even though we made up 10 to 15% of the country, literally for almost our entirety of our existence, and more importantly, we made up sometimes 60 and 70% of the voting population in the South, we had no one looking out for our interests. No one. There was a sense among Black representatives on Capitol Hill who learned from what happened during Jim Crow, who saw how hard it was to break a monopoly of hate and harm once it is entrenched into law. They decided that they needed to become organized. That sense of organization led to the founding of the Congressional Black Caucus in 1971 with 13 members, and a historic 58 were sworn in when the last Congress convened. So this is what they do. So Representative Diggs, as an ad hoc group spearheaded by Charles Diggs of Michigan, the committee was started because there was a sense of isolation among Black members, and they wanted to create a forum to address issues. So imagine being 13 out of 435. Do you think anyone cared about those initial representatives when they first were elected to Congress? And would you like to know who those people were? I suspect you may recognize some of their names. The sooner we get organized for action, the more effective we become. It's amazing how once upon a time we understood the importance of being organized for action. It says, as a result of a court order redistricting, the number of Black members in Congress jumped from 9 to 13, spurring a move to set up a more formal group. Court order redistricting. So after you had the Civil Rights Acts of the 1870s. If you don't know what those are, look them up. The Ku Klux Klan Act is one of them. Go look them up. You couldn't get these power structures to do right. So you come back again in the 1960s. And again, you have to challenge these exact same power structures with the same message. And then you have to go to court. So for anybody out there thinking these power structures now are going to cede anything without a demand, you have not been paying attention to history. The thrust of our elections was that many Black people around America who had formerly been underrepresented now felt that the 9 members of the House owed them the obligation of also affording them representation in the House. In addition to representing our individual districts, we had to assume the onerous burden of acting as congressmen at large for underrepresented people around America. Look at where these people got elected from. New York, Missouri, Collins of Illinois, Conyers of Michigan, DeLumes of California, Hawkins as well, Metcalf of Illinois, Mitchell of Maryland, Nix of Pennsylvania, Charlie Rangel, one of the originals from New York, Stokes of Ohio, and D.C. Delegate Walter Fauntroy. Do you see any southern states listed there? After the CBC formed a meeting with President Richard M. Tricky Dick Nixon was requested and turned down. As a result, the CBC boycotted Nixon's 1971 State of the Union address, generating national headlines. We refuse to be a part of your audience if you won't give us one. Again, first you have to even be there to have a voice. Next, you have to organize and collectively advocate for the things that you want. And lastly, you need to be willing to make some sacrifices to get that thing to happen. In 1986, the CDC is considered the first group in the U.S. Congress to stand up against the apartheid regime in South Africa. DeLumes ordered of California the first anti-apartheid bill in 1972. So again, the few representatives we had been advocating for over a decade to get the United States government to do something about South African apartheid. We want Nelson Mandela and the people of South Africa to know that we stand shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, until apartheid is eradicated. William Gray of Pennsylvania authored a bill in 1985 prohibiting American investment in South Africa and was severely restricting imports and exports from the country. Representative George Crockett of Michigan introduced legislation urging the Reagan administration to call for the freeing of political prisoners such as Nelson Mandela and recognizing the ANC, the African National Congress, as the political voice of South Africa's Black majority. Although their legislation failed in 1986, the group helped to lead the passage of a comprehensive anti-apartheid bill. So again, they wouldn't give them the win singularly, but they would come and take their idea, put their face and stamp on it, and then present it and say, because remember, it's 435 people, and they were 15 less are from the CBC. That imposed economic and political sanctions on the regime. Although Reagan vetoed the bill, it was overridden by Congress the first time in the 20th century for a foreign relations bill. Of course, as a member of the CDC, Barack Obama was elected. And clearly was a proud member of the CBC. So that is who Sheila Jackson Lee was during her time in Congress. Again, I would like to say thank you to the many elders who are becoming ancestors who paved the way for us to be able to have the liberties and the freedoms that we currently have. So to our beloved Sheila Jackson Lee, we thank you for your service. And we wish you safe journey as you join the choir of angels and ancestors. As I always say, and this is why, when I do get a chance to spend some time with you all, I remind you that may trouble never find your door. May blessings chase you down. Level up. There is power and purpose in you. Step up and become an advocate as our elders transition into ancestors. The community needs you. And again, I tell you all the time, people are hurting. Give them grace, give them space, make a little room for them in the world today. Thank you for joining me. And thank you to Sheila Jackson